Het graafschap Kent in Engeland is de hemel op aarde voor iedereen met groene vingers. Of voor iedereen zoals ik die zou willen dat hij groene vingers had. In ieder geval, de streek wordt niet voor niets de Garden of England genoemd. Want het wemelt hier echt van de prachtige tuinen vol mooie kleurtjes en geurtjes. Maar je mag die titel, de tuin van Engeland, ook figuurlijk interpreteren. Want Kent werd vroeger toch zo'n beetje gezien als de achtertuin van de rijke burgerij in Londen. Daarom zijn er hier naast al die fantastische tuinen ook zoveel minstens even indrukwekkende landhuizen en kastelen. Ik begin mijn trip met een bezoekje aan het grootste nog bewoonde manor house van Kent, Penshurst Place. Het bescheiden stulpje is eigendom van dit sympathieke upper-class duo. Lord and Lady Delisle.
Welcome to Penshurst.
Thank you.
Nice
My name is
see
Erika.
you.
Hello.
Morning.
Good morning.
Morning.
Oh, I can say Philip. I don't have to say Lord Delisle. No?
No, we don't stand on ceremony here.
Okay.
Do come in.
Yes, please.
This is the Baron's Hall, which was built in 1341 by a very rich wool merchant called Sir John de Pulteney. And it was enormous for its day, really huge. And it's a lovely...
It still is huge.
It is still huge, isn't it? It looks a bit like a church.
Has it ever been owned by one of the kings of England?
Well, it is a defended manor house, and it was owned by a king, Henry VIII, and he lived here while he courted Anne Boleyn, who lived just a few miles down the road at Hever Castle.
Oh, so this was a strategic place also.
Well, it was from a romantic
From a romantic
point of view.
Well, I think he chased deer by day and Anne Boleyn by night.
What you might enjoy is the fact that these trestle tables would have been here when he was eating in this room.
Yeah.
Rather fun.
Yeah, it is. So, but you grew up here in
Yes, I
this
came
manor
here
house?
when I was 3 months old with my father and mother, and then three sisters.
Yeah.
And so I lived here ever since.
What about you? Do you love the place? Because you got it together with your husband.
Yes, indeed. No, well, it is. It's a beautiful house. A joy to live here. I should be a lot slimmer than I am. You walk an awful long way.
This is the state dining room.
Wow. And now the two of you have dinner here.
Oh, yes, of course. Just the two of us every evening.
Yes. Is it a full-time job for you two to maintain this house?
It's a part-time job, and I'm the Lord Lieutenant of Kent, so I'm the Queen's personal representative. And if the Queen should come to Kent, then I'm there to visit her in my posh uniform. And she did come to Kent last November, so it was my first occasion when I had to greet the Queen. And I was a bit worried because I thought that if I wasn't good enough, that I may end up in the Tower of London. And my children said, "Well, Dad, we'll send you a Red Cross parcel."
Oh. Don't you ever get tired of all these people, all these tourists visiting your house?
No, they're very kind to come, so they help us maintain it. But it is still our family home. We like to think it's a home which is visited, rather than an attraction in which we live.
And we do enjoy sharing it. We get lovely visitors. They seem to appreciate it and enjoy it. And we enjoy seeing them.
En die lovely visitors zijn ook massaal aanwezig in deze prachtige tuin. De trots van Kent en de moeder aller hofjes, Sissinghurst. Mooi van beneden, van buiten, van binnen en van boven.
So here we are at the top of the tower at Sissinghurst, and it's a very good place to see and understand exactly how everything came about. In 1930, Vita Sackville-West and her husband Harold Nicholson came here because they saw that it was for sale and absolutely fell in love with it. It was a complete ruin at the time. They weren't garden designers, they just had an interest. So she was a writer and a poet, and very renowned for that work. Her husband Harold was a diplomat, and her interests in gardening made her want to create a wonderful garden as well. Well, they also had a very unusual private life, shall we say. Whilst they were married and had an absolutely loving relationship, they were also both homosexual. And Vita would have her relationships when he was away, Most famously, we had Virginia Woolf, who would come here regularly. And all the time that Visa was here, she was gardening, she loved it, and she used it to, you know, sort of get inspiration from it. So when they thought about creating a garden, it came from in here and in here, and everything that they had sort of visited going around. And what's interesting with Sissinghurst particularly is that it's an unusual garden, because in 1930 they were we still saw Victorian gardens around that were much bigger and very formal. Sissinghurst is a series of very small rooms that replicated the style of the old mansion house that had long since fallen down. So within this garden they started having a real lifestyle of using it as if it was their house. They were just extensions of their household rooms.
The garden was part of the house.
Exactly.
So this is one of the rooms, one of the garden rooms.
Yes, and Harold was very much involved with setting out the structure, the vistas, the hedges, the paths, and then Vita dressed the garden, if you like, in soft plants and made it very exuberant. Lots of beautiful flamboyant things. The White Garden that we're in now was one of her masterpieces, really, that's replicated all over the world. And the idea being that it looks really, really wonderful under moonlight. And she wrote about it like that, and about a dream that she'd had of a barn owl coming through under the moonlight. And
even her garden was poetry.
Oh, absolutely. It became so popular that there are hundreds of gardens that are based on this all around the world, everywhere. People love
just come here to steal with their eyes.
Absolutely, and they come here for the White Garden. They always want to see the White Garden.
Voilà, u weet wat u te doen staat.
Wat er vooral opvalt als je door Kent rijdt, is dat je op de meeste plaatsen eigenlijk vrij weinig van het landschap kan zien, omdat er overal van die hoge hagen langs de kant van de weg staan. Nu, wat daar dan wel bovenuit steekt, zijn die gekke kegelvormige daken van de zogenaamde oasthouses. Die werden vroeger gebruikt om hop te drogen, maar tegenwoordig zijn de meeste woon- of vakantiehuisjes geworden. Een goede logeertip dus voor een gezin, een groepje vrienden of een bende collega's. Zoals Me and My Crew, de ploeg van Vlaanderen Vakantieland. Regisseur Marijne, cameraman Hans en klankman Johan. Tof, hè? Is dat goed als ik de ronde kamer neem?
Ja, die van mij.
Is het de Vira? Nee, gelukkig niet. Het is de trein van Tenderden naar Bodiam. Een stomend stukje erfgoed.
So the railway opened in 1900 by Colonel Stevens, and it was the first railway under a light railway order where they could cut corners and go round hills, not over them. So it was much cheaper. In the 60s, Dr. Beeching was brought in because the British Railways were running at a loss, and he made drastic changes by cutting a lot of branch lines, including this one. The same year, a group of volunteers bought the railway eventually.
Same year already.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. And in 1974, we started the first train service from here to Rolvenden.
Okay, and so now it's a train purely for tourists.
Purely for tourists, that's right. Yes, that is all. Yes.
A popular one.
Very popular indeed. Yes, and for which we're very grateful. Yeah, because it keeps us playing with steam engines, which is wonderful. I'm also a head waiter on this Pullman. I'll show you inside if you'd like to see, would you?
Yeah.
Good, yeah. This carriage plus another one, Theodora, built in 1926. Extremely popular, and this becomes full about 4 months in advance. I must go now because I'm shoveling coal on the train that's leaving at 4 o'clock. So
you have to do the dirty work.
I have to do the dirty work. That's right. Yes.
Okay, I will join you.
You'll join me.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay.
Okay. There we go.
Thank you. Have a nice day.
Bye-bye, dear. Nice to see you. Bye-bye.
Heel wat patrimonium in dit land is in handen van de National Trust. Maar hier en daar zijn er dus ook nog indrukwekkende eigendommen in privébezit. Zowel kastelen als tuinen. Dit is het mooie Marl Place, eigendom van de artistieke Linda Williams.
Are you Mrs. Williams?
I am.
Hello, I'm Erika. Nice to
Hello,
meet you.
Erika.
So how do you get to own a property like this? Do you have to be really rich?
Well, yes.
Well, yes.
My father, who was a thriller writer, he wrote books and he was very prolific, unreasonably successful. And my parents were both very interested in plants. In fact, my mother was quite academic, so she knew everything about plants. And we grew up knowing the Latin names and the plant associations and all that sort of thing.
And does it feel like working or more as a hobby?
Oh, no, it's not a hobby.
No.
Absolutely not. No, it's me. I am gardening and painting. That is what I am.
All the way from China, they send it off. Children, when they were here,
Yes, I know. And we go into the what is now the scented garden, which was originally a rose garden, but it was not to my taste. And now everything is scented. Not necessarily a nice smell, but everything has a scent.
Okay.
And in fact, this was the part of the garden that was most exciting to me and my sister when we first came here in 1948. It was completely obscured. We had no idea it was here. So you can imagine how exciting that was to go through the jungle and find.
Yeah.
And we found the pond, and we found where you turn it on, and water came out. So that was a very exciting moment. Okay. And from that moment on, we were gardeners, my sister and I.
We also went to Sissinghurst Gardens. What do you think of them?
I think they're fantastic, but I think they're stuck in aspic. There's no progression. It's been the same for years and years and years. It's amazing. The flowers, the trees, everything is cared for to a gold medal standard.
But it's too perfect for
But
you.
it's not anybody's house. It's not anybody's garden.
En dan ruil ik moeder Williams in voor dochter Williams. Even kunstzinnig en even verliefd op het domein. Dat op sommige plekken trouwens een beetje doet denken aan het Middelheimpark in Antwerpen.
And so this is really where all my passion began. I grew up here and this is where I wanted to be on my own in the woods, playing, discovering things, turning leaves over, listening to birds and stuff. And now I am lucky enough to teach grown-ups how to play again, how to be a child and how to be... It's okay to put your handprint on a tree. You know, it's their reaction to you know, how does a wood affect them? So this is some of their work. It's all about sort of fantasy and the scary side of fairy tales and woods, but also the good side, the funny side, the exciting side. And so here you've got the male blackbird, and he's singing to the female who's perched in the tree there. And they're only allowed to use materials that they find in the woods. That's what it's about. And this tree here was the lady that made this. She's very musical, and the idea here is that this sculpture makes a sound when the wind blows. So it's not just this, it's the leaves as well brushing against the stick. So the whole thing is a musical thing. And that's really what I want to do, is just to make grown-ups, instead of walking through a wood and going, where are we going to sit down and have a cup of tea or our sandwiches, they actually start to look at what's about them, smell things, hear things, you know. It's okay to be quiet. Not that you'd know it with me talking, but, you know, it's okay to be quiet in a wood and just absorb what's around. You know, look at the way the shadows happen from the trees.
You're actually one very lucky bastard to have grown up in such a beautiful place and just to live here.
You're right, I am, absolutely. And now my children can enjoy the same childhood that I was lucky enough to have. But Mole Place is all about the 3 generations that have lived here and added their soul and their passion to it. And it's the culmination of those 3 generations all adding a little bit and being a family and living here and enjoying it that have made Mole Place what it is. You know, that's what it is.
Ja, het kan niet anders of jij wil dat stukje paradijs snel met je eigen ogen gaan ontdekken. 1.be/Vlaanderen Vakantieland. Daar moet je zijn voor alle details.